Okay, Assalamualaikum and good afternoon, everybody.
Afternoon.
Okay, so we shall start our class. So today's topic is about strategic management. Okay, so this is very important topic because when we talk about entrepreneur things, okay, in this class is all about entrepreneurship. One of the main component in managing business is basically doing a strategic management. Okay, so we want to go into this topic. In fact, your assignment coming up is all about this strategic management. Okay, so this learning outline, we go straight to the what is strategic management is all about. Okay, so strategic management in a long sentence there, I put strategic management is an organization process of continuous planning, executing, monitoring, analyzing, assessing, and all the necessary things managers must do in order to achieve the goal and objective of the organization. So in a simple word, what basically manager must do? What manager and strategies. What is basically strategy? Strategy is what we call decision, action, or the things that basically managers must do. Managers oftentimes they must make decision for the betterment of the company, okay, for the good of the company. What would be the company goal in the next 5 years, for instance? So, in order to achieve that goal, managers must do something, must plan, must come out with all the things necessary, and then must assess the existing position, and then come out with the ways to do things, implement things, and then only we can see the result. All right. And normally in business, wait a second, okay, let me stop this thing first because I cannot get my mouse. All right. Start it up all over again. Where is it? Okay, next is basically business model. What is business model? Business model basically mean plan, okay? The plan to execute whatever the vision and mission of the company. So normally model will determine what are the things that we need to do, okay? Once we have a business model, it is always good so that all the things that managers or people inside the organization basically will have some kind of focus, okay? All right, so strategic management, the important first is basically in order to boost the performance of an organization. Normally in any organization, they must have some kind of so-called mission and vision. Mission is the current undertaking, whereas the vision is normally future undertaking. What would be the future? And normally in any organization, they would like to see the performance going up and up and up. For instance, we in university always looking at the ranking. Maybe our current ranking now is based on QS is 217 or whatever. Maybe in next 5 years we want to be 150. And that is basically the vision. So once we do have the vision, and how do we achieve those things? Okay, so in order to achieve those things, we need some kind of strategic management. And then the second one is basically what we call changes. We do talk about changes last week. okay, change management. Once we embark on the strategic management approach, in strategic management, we do have so-called analysis of our weaknesses and our strength and whatnot. So once we know our weaknesses, then perhaps we must do some kind of changes. Otherwise, we are not going to achieve to the level of performance that we set. And then the third thing is basically we want to focus or coordinate approach. Okay, we might have different people working under different unit, section, department, but even though they are being put in one small unit very far away from the main office building, but their aim is also always the same. Okay, the aim of any organization is always only one in order to achieve something. So they must basically work together. And lastly, the strategic management is very important for everybody to make a decision. If they do not know what to do, then basically everybody will have to make their own decision. At the end of the day, we will not see the achievement of the objective and KPI. That is the issue. Okay. Normally, decisions have to be made in accordance with what are the specific things that we already target for. Okay. So normally within the strategic planning or strategic management approach. Okay, this is what we call strategic management process. There are basically 5 processes that we have to go through. First, basically, there is all the explanation in step number 1. First thing first, understanding what is our current mission, goal, and basically what are the strategy to achieve those things. Mission and goals. So I already mentioned to you what is the mission. Mission is the current undertaking in terms of we must know what our service is all about. What kind of product that we basically offer? What kind of party stakeholder involved? Okay, that will be the mission. And goal, some people say this is what we call vision. So goal and vision is basically the same thing. Future undertaking. What will be your next in the next 5 years? What you want to your organization to become? Okay, so that is the first thing first. We must establish those things, and then step number 2 involve external analysis. And when we talk about external analysis, this word basically come into our discussion. SWOT analysis, okay? SWOT. You see, you notice the external analysis involve O and T, opportunity and threat. Okay, opportunity and threat. What would be our current threat? And what will be our current opportunity? Normally, in terms of external analysis, it involves, for instance, this is what we call external analysis. Okay, external environment involve analysis in terms of the climate, economy, technology, political, legal, competition, media, fashion, and etc. etc. In strategic management, this external environment is better known as PESTEL, in short, word PESTEL. In some organization, they do not go into the whole PESTEL things. They just go into only PEST, PEST. So it depends. Okay. So what is basically PESTEL? Again, it's the same thing: political, economic, social, environment, legal issue, and technological issue. For instance, nowadays we are talking about Internet of Things. So all Internet has taken over all the way that we do things. Okay. So based on the current situation, what would happen to our company, for instance, in the next 5 years, if the company do not make changes with regard to technological changes, what would happen to the organization? So the company must basically analyze based on external analysis. Okay, based on external analysis, you will come out with the list of opportunity and threat. Okay, then step number three. Step number three is doing internal analysis. Okay, internal analysis. Internal analysis mean you understand your current strength and weaknesses. Okay, current strength in terms of what? In terms of your resources, capability, what are the activities, organizational structure, and etc. We can take a look at this figure here in terms of the culture, structure, human resource, how many human resource that you have, what are the skill that your organization have, what are the physical asset, do you have enough cash or your financial, and then how about your management strength. So this is what we call your internal analysis. So once you do that, at the end of the day, you will understand your strength and your weaknesses. And then when you analyze, there are so many so-called indicator that we already mentioned in change management last week. You can take a look at the financial indicator and then physical asset. For instance, UTM, okay? UTM have a big campus. That's what we call asset, physical asset. But having physical asset itself is not the complete strength. Our complete strength is basically intangible asset because we are offering what? We are offering knowledge. So in order to offer knowledge, people will come to university because they do have the right what we call skill resources. You don't, meaning to say, you don't need to have a big campus anyway. There are some university basically only have a few buildings, but still people go to that university due to the fact that they might have a strong research, they might have a strong knowledge base, lecturer, professor, and whatnot. So that's what we call intangible asset. Okay, something that we simply cannot see so much, but it is there. It is part and parcel of that organization. So again, SWOT analysis. So what is the SWOT analysis? S stand for strength, and then W stand for weaknesses. And out of this strength, normally we create opportunity. And out of these weaknesses, normally there are a lot of threat that we need to get rid of. So in the strategic management, you will always hear this word, SWOT or SWOT analysis. Okay, perhaps some of you might have gone through in some other classes this kind of wording. Okay, so this wording is being used a lot in strategic management. Okay, so the external and external environment, we already touched on that thing. In short, normally people call it PES or pastel. All right, and then okay, this is an example. So normally when you go through the SWOT analysis, you will know your own strength and weaknesses, and then from that you will grab the opportunity. From that you try to reduce the threat, because the threat will drag your business away and away from being achieving your full potential. And if you go through the internet, You can Google top 10, top 100 most valuable brand in the world in 2020. You can see the top brand is basically Google. Second would be Apple. Okay, Google, Apple. Apple, for instance, they do not have many product anyway, but they have one of the most trusted or valuable brand. Meaning to say, whatever the product that they come out, people will still basically buy because of what? You see, that is what we call the value perception that they build into the brand. Okay, people always buy their product due to what reason? Okay, some basically have some kind of a so-called emotional attachment. That would be correct also. Some will look at the issue of the quality, perhaps, and some could be the issue of loyalty. That is how company build their own strength based on the concept. Okay, weaknesses, strength, opportunity, and threat. And then the world largest public company. What does public company mean? Public company normally being public listed in security bourses. In Malaysia, for instance, we do have stock exchange, New York Stock Exchange, whatever exchange. So normally company, strong company, they normally sell some of the share to be brought by so-called public, okay, or being owned by the public, okay. When people own the company, there are a lot of emotional attachment associated with that. That is the strategy to basically, in order to increase the cash flow of the company. All right. So why I show this kind of figure? Because it has something to do with your assignment later on. All right. And in Malaysia, we do have, for instance, big company that have a strong uh, public, what we call share. They are normally associated with banking service, utilities, and some property, and then telecommunication. That's normally the company that normally have a big share in the market. Okay, you cannot run away. Normally, company associated themselves with providing basic infrastructure. They are normally going to sustain for a very long time because they do not have a so-called competitor anyway. Sometimes they depend on the contract. Once they got the contract from the government, so they could be very happy. Yeah? It will last forever and ever. Okay, then step number 4. Still, we are at the strategic management process. Step number 4, once, remember step number 1 is basically knowing the mission and vision of the organization. So once you are very clear on that, and then step number 2 is doing external analysis, knowing the opportunity and threat. Step number 3 would be doing internal analysis, knowing the strength and weaknesses of your organization. And then step number 4 is coming up with a strategy. Okay, strategy, how to work on your strength in order to grab the opportunity. Okay, strength will give you the opportunity, whereas the weaknesses will lead you to the threat. They are threat in about your organization, but you need to tackle those things. Okay. Okay, you come up with a strategy how to capitalize on your strength, and how to basically come up with the strategy to reduce your weaknesses at the end of the day, do away with the threat. And then step number 5, Once you come up with the strategy, you implement the strategy. Okay, you implement the strategy, all right, with all the right resources, the right people, the right tool, and perhaps you need to set aside budget. Let's say your weaknesses could be the issue of skill. So next year you come up with the budget so that you retrain people. You bring the consultant to train your people using the right tools. You purchase the software or the tools that basically you can do work faster or even your productivity increased. Okay, so you implement those things. And then step number 6 is basically to evaluate the result. Once you implement, you want to see to what extent you basically achieve your set target. If you do not achieve, but then you have time to recalibrate. So that's why strategic management, it is not just once a year or 5 years so-called plan. We even in UTM, strategic management, we do have in what we call multi-level strategic management. First, we start with the so-called department. So in our department, we do have so-called director or head of department. So head of department need to come up with the strategic management of the department, taking into account all the suggestions made by the members of the department. Okay, then he will bring those departmental strategic management into the school. So meeting among the head of department with the chairman or the head of the school, chairman, associate chairman, and whatnot. And then the school will come up with their own strategic management. So that strategic management will be tabled to the university. Okay, university basically have their own strategic management. That's what we call corporate level strategic management. And normally from sometimes it can work the other way around. It could be the bottom up or top down approach. Okay, so it depends on the way the organization have to pass down the plan, either from the top down or from the bottom up. Okay, type of organizational strategy. Okay, so organization can come out with a strategy in order to enhance their company performance. In what way? Some of the organization will choose the growth strategy, whereas some will choose on stability strategy, and then the rest perhaps will go using the renewable strategy. So what are those strategy? So first thing first, the growth strategy. Okay, before we go into that, okay, level of organizational strategy. So as I already mentioned to you, there are corporate level strategy, business level, and functional level. Okay, if in an organization, there are some organizations, sometimes they do have multiple subsidiary or many company within the group of the company. So the top boss, normally the CEO, plus the CFO, plus the COO, and the general manager of all the company within the main company will come together, will put some kind of thinking, what would be our future plan. So that is among the top people. This is what we call corporate level strategy. And then business level strategy. Business level strategy normally happen within the manager, perhaps the general manager and manager among the business unit or the subsidiary company within the group of the company. Okay, and then under that company, normally we are going to have the so-called line manager or head of department. So they are the people who basically run the show. This is what we call functional level. Okay, so they will basically come up with their own strategy, and normally the strategy is basically to execute the whatever the strategy being done at the business level, and this business level is basically following the corporate level strategy. So this is what we call the top-down approach. Normally, it start from the top people. They do have one common strategy, and then they will pass down to the manager within the subsidiary, and then that manager will pass down to the head of department, and head of department will pass down the action plan to members of the department section. So basically it will pass down to people like me or whoever, so-called the workers. All right. Okay, so we go back to the type of strategy. First thing first, growth strategy. What is the growth strategy? Growth strategy is basically expansion strategy. Normally, organization vision will always try to expand the business from small into medium, into big, and even into a mega corporation. If they want to do that, so the approach is basically to grow, okay? To grow in terms of coming out with a new product, or open up the market so that you can get a bigger share of the market. That's what we call a growth strategy. And then type of growth strategy. There are a few type of growth strategy. First, we call it concentration, and then vertical, horizontal, and then diversification. What will be the first one? Concentration. Okay. Still within the growth strategy, we do have a type of a growth strategy. For instance, concentration. What is concentration? Concentration is normally being practiced a lot. You focus on your primary line of business, meaning to say your own strength. Let's say, let's take a look at example of KFC. KFC or McDonald's food chain. KFC basically they are doing the same kind of business for the past, oh, I don't know, 20, 30 years. They are selling fried chicken. That is their strength. Okay. But along the way, they do offer certain product. Okay. The add-on, so-called, sometimes they introduce variation of product. Okay, just to capture the market. Okay, sometimes people like to try new things, even though that product might not be successful, but there are people who always like to try. So somehow within a month they will introduce a new product, so then they will make extra 10% profit out of nothing. Okay, but they still maintain the focus. Okay, selling the main product, which basically KFC. All right, then vertical integration. Okay, what is vertical integration? It basically relate to what we call value change, what we call supply chain. Okay, supply change have something to do with, okay, when you open up a business, sometimes your nature of business is basically could be manufacturer. You only manufacture things. You do not sell, or you do not have outlet to sell your product. Okay, you only produce. That's what we call manufacturer. And who is going to sell your product? And that's what we call the outlet, or sometimes people call it the supplier. Supplier will come into your factory, whatever, and then they will do the marketing. They will sell your product. They might have the outlet. They might sell your product through online business, whatever thing. They might basically export. That's what we call the supplier, okay? The outlet. And then the raw material. In order to produce things, you need resources. You need the raw material, such
Doctor,
as the
you mentioned
manpower.
about supply chain. What's supply chain management actually?
Supply chain, no. Let's say KFC, okay?
Okay.
Kentucky Fried Chicken. In order to sell product, they need to have what we call the resources, isn't it? The raw material, the chicken. So the chicken itself is basically the resources. So the resources is part of the supply chain, meaning to say you need the resources. Okay, this is what we call the resources. Resources could be what we call material. In this case, is basically if we are using the KFC, the chicken is the main resources, and then of course you need the machine, and then of course you need people. Okay, so let's talk about the material. So in order for KFC to produce so-called Kentucky Fried Chicken, they need basically the main resources, which is chicken. Okay, and in some organization, small what we call fast food uh, restaurant, they do not have the so-called chicken producing farm. But KFC, they do have this one. KFC, they do have chicken farm. They call it a what is the name of that farm? Okay, couldn't remember, but they do have. Okay, why? Because in order to control the price of the product, which basically they sell at the KFC outlet, you need to control the raw material. Okay, so this is what we call supply chain. You control at the resources, the raw material, and then the manufacturing, the factory. And KFC do have factory that produce, that cut off the chicken, whatever things they do, basically the all kind of the spices, everything at their own factory. They manufacture those things, the ketchup and whatnot, and then those things are being supplied to the outlet every day. All right, and then another supply chain is basically the outlet. In order to sell the product, you must have the outlet, KFC outlet. But if the company want to control everything, they should control from the raw material, the manufacturing, and then the outlet. But in the case of KFC, I think KFC do not own the outlet. Normally, they will rent the outlet, okay, from the building owner and whatnot. If, for instance, they want to secure the outlet as well, they could do that. So this is what we call vertical integration. You control everything from the start of getting the source of the raw product, and then manufacture that product, and then at the end of the day, sell that product. Okay, so yeah, that's true. Thank you, Wanikram. The ayamas. Okay, so ayamas is the one of the subsidiary of KFC that basically sell the product of the chicken itself. But KFC do have farms, and KFC also do sell what we call raw chicken. So the chicken that when you go to the pasar malam or some wet market, some of the people who sell those chicken is getting the supply from the KFC farm, actually, the KFC chicken farm. That is how you control the whole value chain from the raw material and then manufacturing and then the outlet. Similarly, McDonald also do have back in the United States a farm that grow potatoes, because in McDonald's, basically they do sell a lot of potato chip or whatever. Okay, so in order to control the pricing of the potato, it's better that you do have your own what we call raw material. You can control those things. Similarly, in orange juice, some of the Tropicana orange juice manufacturer, they do own the farm. Okay, once you own the raw material, at the end of the day, you can basically control the pricing. If basically you get from the supplier, you never know. Maybe this year the price is okay, and then the other competitor is trying to bargain. uh, Maybe the supplier will get a better price. They will not sell you at a lower price anymore. Then you get stuck. That is the concept of vertical integration. All right, so it depends. If you think you can, you control the outlet and manufacturing and resources will benefit you. Of course, the cost will be higher. So perhaps you will embark on that kind of strategy. All right, then, okay, let's go. What is this thing? Let me go back to the, okay, second, I could not, okay, here, okay, stop this thing first because, okay, our next strategy, horizontal integration. Okay, horizontal integration meaning to say we do have, I have another slide for this one. Horizontal integration, related diversification, and unrelated diversification. Horizontal integration meaning to say combining operation with this with another competitor. Okay, because sometimes you need, whatever it is in business, you need to compete. There will always competitor. People will open up a company similar to what you have, and then you have to compete head to head. So other than competing head to head, you can basically what we call cooperate with your competitor instead of losing what we call win-lose situation. So now you are cooperating in terms of win-win situation. So we have seen some of the organization who are competing head-to-head, such as in automobile and etc. We know that they are competitor, but at the end of the day, they can collaborate in order to come up with a certain product that at the end of the day, they can share the market instead of losing to one and another at unknown, what we call percentage. Now they are basically sharing. They are still in control of the market, but they are not competing head to head. Okay, that could be another strategy. And then related diversification. Related diversification meaning to say expanding by combining with firm in different but related industry. Okay, I do have an example for that. And then unrelated diversification. Okay, next slide. Example. Remember the Uber and Grab. Uber was the first, okay, that go into the e-hailing market in a big way. Okay, it come to many countries in a big way. Started in the US, whatever, and then it come to every country, including Southeast Asia. Then come this company called Grab. Okay, and because Grab basically is based in Malaysia and Singapore, so it basically know the nature of Southeast Asian business or country compared to Uber, and suddenly Grab has been more popular than Uber. In such a way, they are competing head to head. But at the end of the day, last few years, 2 years back or whatever, and then suddenly we hear that Uber basically pull out from the market. Okay, subsequently, Grab taking over the Uber, but Uber basically in return, they pull back from the market. In return, they do have some kind of share in Grab. Okay, that is example of how instead of because at the end of the day, you cannot compete in that particular market because of certain company is getting more popular than another. Instead of losing 100%, better that you lose some percentage. Okay, that is example. And then another example is Pepsi. Pepsi, we know, basically produce all kind of soda drinks. Okay, but then but diversify in term of acquiring certain, for instance, potato chip, all kind of, it is non-drink kind of business, but still within food and drinks. That is another example. Okay, this is what we call related diversification. Within food and drink, initially it starts with the drink, but then it grabs some of the market share in terms of providing snack. Okay, because that kind of thing is always related. When you buy soda, for instance, you like to buy some kind of snack at the same time. Okay, and then another one, unrelated diversification. Virgin. Okay, you see, Virgin, as perhaps you might know, Virgin Atlantic basically it is like a Asia. Okay, but they do diversify in terms of railway, you notice, and then some mega stores, even soft drink, telecommunication, media, radio, and whatnot. And if you study the history of AirAsia is also getting in term of unrelated diversification. It started from airline, and then they open up the some kind of telecommunication service provider, and then they go into a hotel business, and then they go into insurance, and they open up music as well. So basically, they duplicate this kind of business model. Okay, and in Malaysia, talking about unrelated diversification, if you are in Malaysia, you might well versed with this company. We call it Berjaya Corporation. And Berjaya is a classic example of unrelated diversification. You see, Berjaya do have 7-Eleven. Berjaya venture into a property, all kind of hotel, and then even Causeway, consumer product, and then Starbucks, Kenny Rogers, Wendy's, all kind of eateries, and then telecommunication, and then money online, what we call a monetary service, and then it go into publication, The Sun, and then it goes into insurance, Berjaya Sompo, this is the insurance company, financial service. See, it's completely unrelated diversification as long as the company think that they can make money, and why not? Okay, and it goes into what we call car industry as well, you see, and not to mention the Toto and gaming business. As long as can make money, and you just simply grab it. This is in Malaysia. We do have a lot of big company that use this kind of model. Okay, as long as you can make money, why not? Okay, at the end of the day, if that company is no longer making money, then basically you sell off. As simple as that. Okay, then stability strategy. Stability strategy is where you cannot, you are in the position that you cannot grow in the way that you want it to grow rapidly, getting nowhere. And also you do not want this company to basically die out. You just want to maintain this company, okay? You want to maintain the status quo, meaning to say you can still make money out of this company even though you do not embark into rapid expansion. Perhaps one of the classic example is cigarette industry. Cigarette industry, meaning to say the branded one, not the one that you can get from the shop, 4 ringgit and 50 cent with no brand. Okay, this is the branded one. I do not know the brand. Uh, it has been there for a very long time. They are just simply sustaining their business. Why they cannot grow? Because of when you are into a cigarette industry, you are being associated with a lot of governmental rule and regulation and the tax issues. So you never know. This year might be you might be in this situation, but next year you never know. Whenever there is a budget speech by the minister or prime minister, then you will see some kind of new regulation will go against you. So, but you know that the customer is there. Okay, customer will be there. So but at the end of the day, you cannot grow to the extent that you want because of the a lot of governmental issues, tax, and etc. All right, and the renewable strategy. Okay, renewable strategy. So renewable strategy, this is exactly what is going to happen after this COVID or even during the COVID. But the one that I have is basically the classic example with regard to the Malaysian airline. If you still remember what happened to Malaysian airline, we have been hit with the issue of lost airline, and then another one being bombarded by in the Ukraine, whatever. Basically, the airline went down due to that kind of situation and the issue of reputation. But since the airline belonged to the government and we need a national carrier, we cannot basically let go the airline. It has a good reputation for very long time ago, but because of that one or two event, the reputation has been damaged. So the Malaysian airline basically embarked into renewable strategy. Renewable strategy in terms of turning around the company. And they did that, and it was successful for a few years, but because of the stiff competition, okay, they still need some kind of help from the government anyway. So if you read through the case study of Malaysian Airline, they have embarked on the retrenchment. At the initial stage, they cut off about 6,000 workers. Okay, they give the VSS. If you prefer to retire, you will get some amount of money. If you do not prefer to retire, then basically the company will engage you into retraining, and then you are going to be put into different what we call organization that belong to the government. So we need to say you still work, but in other environment. Okay, that's what we call scaling down on number of workers so that you can cut costs. And then turn around plan. Okay, you can cut costs on many things in terms of providing services. Long time ago, people say that even the boarding pass, okay, why bother printing the boarding pass into a very expensive card, for instance? Nowadays, AirAsia has been doing, let people printing using your own money anyway. That is an example of cost-cutting measures. And then why basically force people to buy expensive food where you can choose from selection of food, for instance. That is example of cutting costs on many things. All right. So at the end of the day, you are not going to wind down the company or wipe out the company. The company is still there, but again, once you do the cost cutting measure, you can still keep the company going. Okay, that is example. All right, and then analysis. Okay, in the in strategic management, remember the strategic management definition that I defined at the beginning of the slide involve what we call planning and then analyzing. There are a lot of things that you need to analyze. Okay, how do you analyze organization? Other than using the SWOT analysis, you can use many tools. One of the tool is basically we call it BCG matrix. So BCG matrix, the matrix looks like this. We call it star, question mark, dog, cash cow. Perhaps we can take a look at this thing. Okay. Let's say within your organization, for sure, when you sell product, for sure, out of many product that you sell, there could be one of what we call a star product. Star product meaning to say, whenever you produce that kind of product, it will basically will sold out. People are looking at your product. For instance, let's take a look at the Samsung. Samsung do have what we call star product in terms of the Note, Samsung Galaxy Notes and Galaxy S20, whatever, the high end. Okay, it is a star product. Whenever they come up with that product, it will be sold out. Okay, to some extent. And then there could be certain product they are still selling, even though the market share might not be big, but it is the product that always give a good return in such a way that it is one of the most profitable product. That's what we call the cash cow. The company basically survive based on that popular product, okay, that can sell in volume. In terms of Galaxy Note and Galaxy S20, even though it is popular, but they might not be a big market because of the price could be very expensive. Okay, so in terms of profit might not be as big as the other product. Okay, and then there could be another product, we call it question mark. Question mark in terms of the popularity is not there. Okay, but it can still be grabbed by people. People are still looking at those kind of product, but the question mark is basically in such a way maybe that kind of product need a fresh outlook. We need to inject some kind of investment R&D in order to make that product grow in a bigger market. That could be another situation. And then another situation is what we call dog. Dog is where the product is basically not selling very well, not very popular, not very profitable. Perhaps among the product within your organization, this kind of situation, dog, where you are going to get rid of the product, discontinue product. There are some product in the market has been discontinued because it lacked profitability. And what happened in organization, normally the organization will analyze to what extent they will put the product into this kind of metrics in order to look at where basically this product will lead in the next future, will lead them into the situation whether the product is profitable, generating a lot of money or whatnot. If they have a lot of profit from other product, some of the profit will be injected into the potential product, as in the question mark. That product basically have a lot of potential, but perhaps it lacks a certain cash injection. We need R&D and D and whatnot. For instance, Samsung or many Huawei handphone company trying to come up with what we call fold handphone, the handphone that can fold. But still, at the time, at this moment of time, the product is very expensive. Okay, it is not selling to the extent that they want, but it has a lot of potential. Okay, in the future, perhaps people would love to have that kind of product, but the issue with regard to the cost. Okay, so perhaps whatever profit that they have in a more profitable product, they can use in order to develop the full handphone into a mass production, into a cheaper version. Okay, and then business or competitive strategy. Some organization somehow rely on competitive strategy. Okay, what is the competitive strategy? Competitive strategy meaning to say the strength that you have, what we call distinct competitive edge, distinct advantages. It is something that you develop and you own that kind of competitive strength that make it difficult for others to compete with you. What could be the competitive edge or competitive strength that company can use? For instance, the quality. Quality as a competitive advantages. Example, some of the company focus on quality. Example, uh, what we call the household product. Panasonic. Panasonic. Okay. Panasonic is Japanese brand. And then we do have local brand. We call it Panasonic. Okay. We do have a local brand that is basically is a copycat. Whatever Panasonic produce, this Panasonic also have. Basically, they outsource. Okay, they outsource the product from China, whatever. Then basically they come up with their own brand. Okay, you can use the brand. There's not something wrong with that. But if you have been using a household product, so you can distinguish the quality in terms of Panasonic and Panasonic. I myself have been using a lot of Panasonic brand for many years. Take for example fan. Okay, standing fan. If you buy Panasonic fan, it might be a slightly expensive than Panasonic at the beginning. Maybe nowadays the stand fan Panasonic will sell around 160 to 170. Compared to Panasonic, you can get around 110, 120. But that Panasonic brand fan can last you for many years. It was built based on quality. That is classic example on quality. And some car manufacturer also based on that kind of concept. The car might be a little bit expensive, but the quality is there. Okay, people can basically would like to buy the brand even though it is more expensive because they know it can last them forever. Okay, that is one of the strategy, competitive advantages based on quality. Then you can basically go for sustainable competitive advantages, meaning to say resources. What happened in the future? Okay, what happened in the future? You cannot get the raw material. You had been using that kind of raw material to produce or to put in your product. Okay, what happened in the next future? You cannot get that kind of material. For instance, we use a lot of rare earth in all electronic product. Okay, just name it. Whatever electronic product, handphone, computer, we use a lot of rare earth. It is the natural resources that found abundantly in a country like China. That's why China can produce a lot of electronic things at a very, very low cost because they basically own a lot of these rare earth. Okay, and a lot of company envy of these resources because they simply cannot get the replacement. But what if in the future people come up with a synthetic whatever thing, the material that can replace those raw material, perhaps. So company like energy company, okay, energy company that produce electricity. Long time ago, they depend on natural resources such as gas, coal, and petroleum. But that kind of coal and LNG or petroleum will be depleted, okay, sooner or later. But now, a lot of energy company, even in Malaysia, TNB, has been uh, what we call change their strategy. They are using more renewable energy, okay, compared to the old kind of energy, coal and LNG and petroleum. Okay, that is example of sustainable competitive advantages. Okay, and even car manufacturer. Okay, car manufacturer now is trying to change the engine from the normal combustion engine into some kind of hybrid or electricity engine in order to basically not to rely on so-called raw material petroleum. Okay, but the issue with the battery. But again, the battery is one thing. Perhaps they will go into some kind of alternative in order to come up with the best option, okay, for the battery that can store a longer energy. Okay, that is example. And then 5 competitive forces. Okay, when you do the analysis, this is what we call Porter 5, based on the author, M.E. Porter. It is very famous analysis that normally people do in strategic management. There are 5 so-called threat to the business. One would be coming from the issue of supplier, potential buyer, substitute in terms of the raw material, and then the entrance or the competitor. Okay, for instance, supplier. Let's say you have been getting your raw material from the same supplier, but what if suddenly the supplier are getting a lot new buyer? Okay, so when there are a lot new buyer basically can bargain with the supplier. At the end of the day, the supplier tend to increase the price of the raw material. At the end of the day, you have to buy from the same material, same supplier at the higher cost. What would happen to your product? You have to increase the price of your product. At the end of the day, now you have to compete with others that can sell at a lower cost. That is example. Okay. Similarly, substitute. If, for instance, one day, nowadays, for instance, people are relying too much on Google Play. Remember the issue with Huawei? Okay, at one time, US tried to ban Huawei from using Google Play product, and then suddenly people were having Huawei handphone suddenly getting a problem. What would happen to their handphone in the near future if Google Play is not there anymore? But you see, Huawei are getting using a strategy to come up with their own. Now there is a Huawei, some kind of play similar to Google Play, where you can still get all kind of available apps that you normally use through Huawei apps. That is example. Okay, this is what we call substitute. What if we could not use the Microsoft anymore? Okay, Microsoft Office. Can we still use our Word spreadsheet and whatnot using other apps? I think in the near future, it looks like Google is trying to take over those things. At the end of the day, we might not use the Microsoft Office anymore. We will use the Google Sheet, Google Document, Google whatnot. Everything is getting similar to what we have been using so far. That is example. Maybe at a cheaper rate. Okay, that is what we call Porter 5. So organization normally analyze what could be the threat in their organization so that they can come up with the strategy in order to reduce all those threats so that they can maintain the market share or they can maintain their organization. Okay, and then Porter generic strategy. Okay, Porter generic strategy. You can use cost leadership strategy, differentiation strategy, or focus strategy in order to maintain your company. For instance, cost leadership. Okay, cost leadership is the one being embarked by the low-cost carriers such as AirAsia. Remember, AirAsia focus on low-cost strategy. Everything is low cost. They can cut the cost, and based on that kind of strategy, they have been successful. And now a lot of company, even Malaysian airline, try to go into this kind of business model, but the government basically do not allow them to go into that kind of model because they belong to different kind of strategy. They belong basically to focus strategy, okay, on a different market segment. And then differentiation strategy. Differentiation strategy meaning to say, if you cannot go for a low cost strategy and you cannot go for a focus strategy, you try to differentiate your company. Example, okay, example, car manufacturer. You notice that car manufacturer, examples such as Toyota. Toyota is a very successful company, but their company basically producing all type of car. Okay, they produce a van, big car, medium car, small car, and then truck, whatever type of car. They basically cater for all type of customer. Okay, but there are some kind of car manufacturer that focus only on sport car, such as Lamborghini, Ferrari, and whatnot. They only produce that kind of car, and they are very successful. Even though they might not sell the car as many as Toyota and Volkswagen that sell million of car every year, but they're still successful because they focus on so-called niche market. All right, that is example. And then another company that focus on specific focus strategy. For instance, retail. Okay, We do have retail supermarkets such as Eon, Giant, Tesco, and whatnot. That this is what we call hypermarket. Of course, they do have a big customer, but you notice that they are still small supermarket, or what we call it laundry shop, sundry shop. Okay, small supermarket that can still survive, because sometimes people would like to go to that kind of market instead of going to Eon. If you go to Eon right now, you have to queue for long hours, and then in order to get something, you need to climb up the escalator and whatnot, and then queue to pay for something. So why don't you go to a small shop? So this small shop, this is what we call the focus strategy. You focus on a certain type of people that basically would like to get everything at a very quick time. Okay, everything is there. You might not have a big variation of item in that small shop, but if you go to that shop, you can always get the basic necessity. That is the example. And then what strategic management of today? Okay, today's strategic management basically focus on flexibility, and then focus on the either the IT, customer orientation, or the innovation. For instance, strategic flexibility. Okay, strategic flexibility means you basically listen to either your workers, you listen to the customer, what basically the customer want, and then you learn from the mistake in order to basically maintain your business. It is not like the old way of doing things. The old way of doing things, you just basically produce product. You don't care whether people like it or not, as long as you can sell the product and you still get profit. That's it. But in today's environment, you embark on flexibility. You listen to the customer, you learn from the mistake, you ask your workers to certain extent what kind of problem that they have, and then from that you come up with a strategy in order to make your product um, to the liking of the customer and whatnot. This is what we call flexibility. And then the e-business. Okay, nowadays we have seen the internet have taken over all kind of business in big way, especially after this COVID-19 issue. Okay, it will change everything from education, from marketing, from medical, from transportation. Everything now will be relying more and more on the internet. Okay, and the internet, for instance, people nowadays, since the outburst of the internet, so-called technology, people are trying to get some kind of share, uh, trying to get ahead of the competitor. Some are developing a certain platform, maybe a payment platform. Some are developing platform in terms of where customer can basically order online, and then many things. Okay, in terms of logistic, payment, marketing, and then what we call a mobile wallet, and etc. Okay, with the help of internet. And then another type of strategy, customer service strategy. Okay, customer service strategy normally being embarked by host what we call hospitality industry. Hospitality industry could be hotel, hospital service, or what we call medical service. So, or even university. Okay, we can say in certain extent somehow we basically give service. Okay, to our customer. So student is basically our customer. So perhaps this kind of industry need to listen more to the customer. Okay, they should be more sensitive to the customer, because the customer that basically make bulk of their basically income. All right, and then innovation strategy. Okay, innovation strategy example. Classic example with the handphone industry, mobile industry. Okay, handphone industry. We have seen what happened to the Nokia, BlackBerry. Even though they are the market leader at that time, Nokia, for instance, the biggest mobile phone company in the world at that time, and the BlackBerry, they do have a big market share in the corporate world. At the end of the day, they just basically disappear for some time. But now they are getting back, but it is too late already. Okay, simply because of what? The issue of innovation. They are late in terms of embracing what we call innovation in terms of software. Nokia might be good in the hardware, but at the end of the day, the issue of software. So good product basically must have a good software and hardware that go along. Okay, otherwise you are going to be left behind. So that's why handphone company, Apple, Samsung, they are always trying to come up with the new things. Otherwise, other company will be taking over their position. Okay, so their survival depend very much on innovation. So what this Samsung, for instance, getting, they are trying to get into the fold kind of handphone, flexible screen. So if they can basically control of the so-called manufacturing of the flexible screen market, basically they will be ahead of the competitor. Okay, that is what Samsung is trying to do. In fact, Samsung has been very dominant in terms of the screen market previously, but they are trying to do the same in terms of flexible screen market. At the end of the day, all kind of the handphone manufacturer will somehow produce a flexible phone, will need to get the source from the same supplier, which is Samsung. And that is example of innovation strategy. Okay, innovation strategy, basically, we have to be very careful. They are the market leader somehow, but they also have to face a lot of risk. So whatever thing that you produce as a market leader, you are the one that do the R&D and D and whatnot. You produce thing. At the end of the day, you must remember all the things can be copied. That is the issue. There will always a company that will copy your product. Okay, they can break apart your product and then they can start from scratch. At the end of the day, they will produce the product at a cheaper price. That's what a certain company in China, for instance, they have been successfully doing that. So that's why the company like Oppo, Vivo, Huawei, whatnot, they are getting a market share on the handphone. Previously, they are nowhere getting close to that, getting world market share, but now they are getting into that thing. Why? Because they learn very fast. Okay, that is the setback with the issue of being the market leader. Okay, you can be a market leader. At the end of the day, you never know, because this kind of technology can be easily duplicated. Okay, all right. Destructive technology. You might heard about destructive technology. In the future, people say, okay, these are the technology that will disrupt our way of doing things. In fact, our life. Okay, Internet of Things. Now, with the event of COVID-19, we will see the Internet of Things will go into every kind of business, the way we do things. All right, cloud technology. And now, for instance, if you have a mobile phone, your mobile phone is using a SIM card. That's what we call physical SIM card. And do you know that now we do have a SIM card that use cloud technology? There is no physical SIM card anymore. Okay, so the your account or whatever your number your is being stored in the cloud technology. So in the future, everything will be somehow being stored in that kind of technology. You might not want to bring your pen drive uh, put into your computer anymore. Everything is being stored that way. Advanced robotic, okay? Nowadays, all kind of manufacturing, plantation, even in the construction industry, people are trying to get the robot into doing things, okay? Because if you can get the robot into doing things, for sure you can increase the productivity a lot, okay? And then what else? uh, aut- Autonomous, okay? Autonomous and near autonomous vehicle. Nowadays, you see, a lot of manufacturer of car, big manufacturer of the car, somehow must have some kind of R&D into autonomous car, because this is the future. Okay, we can see in the future we might not uh, have to drive the car physically. Okay, we just sit back at the car and then the car will do that kind of things. Okay, and then energy storage. We have been using what we call mobile phone using battery, but the issue with battery, it will not last for a long time. But we never know. In the future, the battery is going to get smaller and smaller at a bigger and bigger capacity. Maybe small as your ceiling, whatever, can last for a few days. And then advanced material such as nanotechnology. Okay, have you heard about the concrete, the concrete that basically have a self-healing concrete? What is that? Okay, concrete surface that can heal itself. That will be the future. Uh, R&D has been there for a long time, but it is not being produced in a mass market due to the cost. Okay, in the next future, all kind of the this technology will be part and parcel of our life. All right, and a few slides with regard to what we call tools. Okay, when you do the strategic management, you cannot avoid from using all kind of tools. What are the tools? I already mentioned about SWOT analysis. That is always the tool that we use. Porter 5 is again the tool. BCG metric is also the tool. And then this is what we call blue ocean. Perhaps you have heard about blue ocean strategy. If you have heard about blue ocean strategy, not to forget about red ocean strategy. You might not have heard about red ocean. When there is a blue ocean, there is a red ocean strategy. I will not go through all this kind of strategy. This is just tool available in strategic management. Also the Bowman strategy clock, and then what else? Ansoff matrix, McKinsey portfolio analysis, balance scorecard analysis, and etc. etc. Okay, all those are the analysis that people use or the manager normally use in order to analyze your current position. And then once you understand your company very well, and then you come up with the strategy in order to grab the opportunity. And only one thing in common, what is the one thing is basically how to make more profit. That is the intention of the organization, how to make more profit in the future. So because of that, so they come up with all kind of things, tool in order to analyze the organization. All right, so that's it for our topic for today's. So based on this topic, I will release the so-called assignment. That assignment, basically the assignment basically worth 20%, okay? 20% with regard to strategic management. So what you need to do basically, one, so you already learned about what is strategic management in concept. What you need to do is basically, you can Google. There are a lot of strategic management in many organizations around in the internet, because there are a lot of students in MBA classes or whatever, in business classes. For sure, one of the assignment basically to come up with the strategic management of any organization. Okay, so you can choose any organization that you think that you can get the resources, information. Let's say in my so-called e-learning, in your e-learning, I already uploaded a few sample of strategic management, such as Samsung, Walmart, Coca-Cola. So these are the great company. Okay, maybe a global company, maybe company in Malaysia or even in your country. There must be a successful company. And normally, big company, they will do the strategic management analysis. You can get the information if you Google the internet. Okay. So what you need to do, try to study about that organization and try to learn about what are the strategic management that they utilize. You can start with a mission and vision of the company, the organizational structure of the company, and then perhaps the culture of that organization, and then how basically the company do the SWOT analysis, external and internal, and then perhaps they all also conduct somehow the pastel analysis, uh, Porter 5 analysis, and they might use different kind of analysis such as blue ocean strategy and whatnot. Okay, so from that, what is the intention of the assignment is so that you can learn from that organization what could be their success story. There must be a success factor that make this organization so great that they have been lasting for many years. Some of the organization has been in the business for the past 100 years. What basically make them successful company? So that are the things that our intention in this assignment. I want you to learn uh, from that organization what kind of things that basically they do have in common. Normally, great organization basically have a lot of so-called competitive advantages. Okay, they do have distinct advantages. They embark on either quality, either value. For instance, Apple, they embark on value. Okay, what is the value strategy? Okay, so if you do this assignment, perhaps at the end of the day, you will get some ideas what kind of the entrepreneur mind that being shown in this exercise. All right.
Okay.
Any question?
Thank you, Doctor.
All right.
Sorry, Doctor. Today's slides are not